Well, this topic certainly got a lot of attention on this show the last couple of days. I want to get the insight from David Stokes. He is with the Show Me Institute, Missouri-based think tank, joining us on KCMO. It's up in Platte County. Of course, if you haven't seen this story, what happened is Platte County voters on November 5th passed a new sales tax. And the sales tax is set to establish a Platte County Children's Services Fund. It's a quarter-cent sales tax, and the county commission met this week and said that they are not going to implement the sales tax. Now, we talked to the presiding commissioner, Scott Fricker, yesterday, and, he alluded to state law that says they don't have to technically do it. He viewed this as kind of a recommendation from the voters, but nothing more than that. And I get it. I totally understand the legal ground that's being stood on. A part of me, as we've talked about throughout the last couple of days, is struggling with the idea that as much as I would have voted against the tax, the county commission is basically saying, the will of the people don't matter to us. That's the part that I struggle with. David Stokes, good morning. You're on KCMO. How do you react to what's been going on there?
Good morning, Pete. It's incredibly interesting, and I commend the county commission. It's obviously a tough choice. They're going to be subject to they are being subject to a lot of criticism. I watched the commission hearing on Tuesday morning and listened to the public speakers. I've never seen such a crowded county commission meeting at 10 a.m. on a weekday. But look, I see your point too. Everybody can see both sides of this, that voters approve this. But I've read the statute too, and there's a very importantly placed may instead of a shall in that statute. The county commissions may do this upon voter approval, not shall.
Yep.
Now there's shall elsewhere in the statutes, so I'm certain this is really going to be determined in litigation, and I have no idea how the judges will rule. But it certainly seems to me that the county commissioners are on strong legal ground, and I'm glad we have people fighting this hard for low taxes and limited government. I wish we had more people fighting this hard for those things. It always seems to be the opposite way. So it's very interesting, very gutsy. We'll see if they win in court. But at the same point, I see what your point is as well. And it's just it's going to be fascinating to watch it play out.
And this is what I said yesterday to the presiding commissioner, who I think does a great job. I think the county commission in Platte County is outstanding. If the rest of our county commissions looked like Platte County, trust me, the region would be much better off. But, if the shoe was on the other foot, David, and voters did something that I liked, and then the county commission said, you don't really know what's in your best interest, so we are going to use this legal loophole to not do what the voters want, I'd be the first guy on this show, and we'd have a lot of callers lined up saying that's BS. So that's where I'm struggling, David.
Well, a good comparison I think I'll make is, when you're setting property tax rates, and this vote is obviously a sales tax, but when people go to school districts for bond issues or varying property tax increases, voters tend to set a maximum. They'll raise it to they'll increase the property tax rate and set a maximum. But that doesn't mean that the school board members or the city council members or county commissioners have to set it to that maximum that voters approve. There's many examples around the state where voters approve it to one level and they set it to something lower than that because lower than that is what they need to fund whatever government that may be. And I think that's in a pretty good comparison here, in that the elected officials aren't required to go to that maximum amount that voters set for property taxes. The elected officials get judgment in setting that rate. Too often they probably do go to that maximum level because that's what they want, but oftentimes they don't. And I think that's sort of a good comparison to keep in mind here. Yes, voters approved this. I don't want to say voters didn't know what they were voting on. I'd never say that. They certainly did. But also, if the statute gives the county commission authority to have discretion in setting it upon what voters say, then the commissioners, I think, just like they can set lower property tax rates than the voters might have approved, I think the commission can say yes or no on this. And look, these commissioners will be judged in future elections in this county. If voters don't approve of what they did, they can change commissioners.
Yes,
No
and
doubt
and I agree. That's really that's largely that's the best argument, right? The best argument is, hey, we have every right legally to do this, and ultimately, if you want high tax commissioners, you've got a chance to vote them in next time we're on the ballot. I mean, I think if I was the county commission right now, that's the only case I would be making. We're on good legal standing, and if you want high tax county commissioners, you can kick us out of office next time we're on the ballot. And that's where I would end the conversation if I was a county commissioner trying to make this case.
And it's a very good point. Like, I don't think you're going to have any argument that voters have to vote on this again. Let's say the court rules with the county commission and says it doesn't have to be instituted. And again, this will almost certainly go to litigation. But should the county win, the county commission win, right, voters aren't going to have another vote on this issue. They'll be able to vote on it through their elections for the 3 county commissioners going forward. And that's how democracy should work. And I hope that some people in that county, and I think some will, appreciate, as you said, that it's great to have 3 county, even if you disagree with them on this one, it's great to have 3 county commissioners fighting hard for limited government and low taxes at the local level. Too often we may talk big picture about that nationally, and at the local level it's higher property taxes and new sales taxes and new permits and new inspections and et cetera. I think it's great to see 3 people fighting the other way.
I agree. David Stokes is here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. So this quarter-cent sales tax that was passed by Platte County voters on November 5th, the county commission is saying we are not going to implement that tax because, well, state law does not require them to. They're basically looking at this as a recommendation from the voters. But, David, you know as well as I do, one of the most disingenuous arguments that is going to be made and already has been made by the Kansas City Star and others is, David, don't care about the kids. This is all for children's mental health, and you don't care about the kids. You don't care about their well-being, David. Shame on you. When are you going to start caring about the kids there, big fella?
That's what a lot of people said. It wasn't the most common thing said at the hearing on Tuesday. Most people were talking about will of the voters, but absolutely it gets into why aren't we doing this for the children? And that's just a never-ending argument in which, any tax is always justified. Care about the children, care about the old people. If you're opposed to this tax, then you don't care. And I've always been really troubled by that. And one of the things, Pete, as you recall, is we've been talking about this vote for a long time. We were talking about this back in the spring when it was proposed in Platte County. And the idea that I've always been so uncomfortable with politicizing charity like this tax does, mandating charity and politicizing it. And it sort of stops becoming charity when all of a sudden it's done automatically collected by taxes. And there's a lot of arguments and points, and you can see this in what I've written about at showmeinstitute.org, that it's not good for charities to become completely dependent on government funding. It's sort of, yes, it gives them money to do their jobs, and much of what they do is good and beneficial, and I don't dispute that. But when they become dependent on government funding, it sort of changes their mission a little bit and changes their outlook in ways that aren't always good.
Yeah.
So I like charities being charities and dependent on getting donations from people in the community, not relying on tax dollars.
David Stokes of the Show Me Institute. Hey, David, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will talk to you again in 2025. Thanks for being here, my man.
I look forward to it, Pete. Great Christmas to you and everyone in your audience, and talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, there you go. David Stokes, Show Me Institute on KCMO Talk Radio.